As already mentioned, multiband compression works just like normal compression, but it can divide the signal into different bands and compress each one of them separately. Now, just to demonstrate it here in this mastering setting, I'm just going to use the Pro MB from FabFilter because it's really the most flexible one. I'm going to create just a single band right here, and this is the band that we're actually compressing right here. So let me solo that. So out of the entire song, it is only this part of the frequencies that we are compressing. And that goes for anywhere you move this band. As such, let's move it to the highs only. So this will be the only thing, this will be the only part of the signal that we're compressing. And let me compress that. I'm going to use a really fast attack, fast release, a really hard knee, really high ratio so you can really feel it. You see? So I can make sure that all of the transients are gone from the song. Without it. So that's one of the things we can do. Now, of course, it's really versatile, and this compressor, this multiband compressor, has different things it can do with its compression mode and its expansion mode. So when in compression mode, what we're always doing, regardless of the setting of the range or the threshold, what we're always doing is we will always be tending to compress the dynamic range, meaning that the differences in between the loudest and the quietest parts are going to be reduced. So we are reducing the difference in between the quiet and the loud parts, thus compressing the dynamic range. When we expand, we are expanding that dynamic range. We are increasing the difference in between the quietest and the loudest parts. And I'll show you how. So when we're in the compression mode and we have a negative range like this, pointing downwards, it means that any part of the signal that does not reach threshold is not touched, but once it does reach threshold, it's getting compressed, it's getting attenuated, the volume is pushed down. If we use the positive range, it will mean that any part of the signal that is lower than the threshold is getting boosted up. Again, anything quiet is being pushed up, and in such case, we are again decreasing the difference in between the quiet and the loud. So it's either pushing the loud down or pushing the quiet up. Again, both of those compress the dynamic range. When we do expansion and we have a negative range, any signal that does not touch the threshold, so if it doesn't surpass the threshold, is getting pushed down. If we go positive with the range, any signal that does pass the threshold is getting pushed up. This, again, both of these cases, they increase the dynamic range. So anything that's quiet, make it even quieter. Or anything that's loud, make it even louder, basically, which increases the range. So it's expanding the dynamic range. So let's use the compression first. And as you saw, I can make with a high tag, really, really fast attack, fast release, and the range pointing down, I can make these transients from the high frequencies, where all the transients are, just disappear because they're all getting compressed. And let's see what that looks like on the precise scope right here. So I can show it to you, let's say like this. I can show you what this band, only this band, looks like without compression and with compression. Let's play it. So you can see the transients right here, right here. Those are those initial transients of each one of these, the punch from each one of these elements in the rhythm. Okay, so let's start compressing. Look at that. So everything's more flat. And even if I add some volume here to compensate, listen to that. So immediately you get some of that punch. Now, it's not fast enough to catch this tiny transient that comes from the bass, I believe. It's not fast enough. But if I play only the drums right here, and let me loop this part as such. So look at those transients go away. I'll bypass it. here the punch on each one of those. No more punch. Everything's just flat. So that's one of the things you can do. Let's hear that in the context of the full mix. So, no compression. Compression. And of course, what I've done here is made a really extreme case of it, so you know what to do. So if you wanted less punch, if you wanted something to have actually this kind of character, you could use this kind of compression. So you could use a really fast attack, fast release compression on the high frequencies, and the release doesn't even have to be that fast. But if the release becomes too slow, again, you're gonna get punch. You see, again, you get some punch. If it's fast enough to stop compressing before the next punch, you get this smeared kind of feel. So that's just one of the things, okay? So we can do that on the high frequencies. I just shown you what that looks like. Let's move this all the way to the bottom, all the way to the low frequencies, and apply this compression there. So what's going to happen here? Let's play this solo, apply no compression. Okay. So I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Right here, I can see it. The sub of the kick drum, which is right here, is louder than the sub of the bass, which is right there. A tiny bit, but that's how it is. That's the dynamics I want. Now, if I didn't want that, you see, as soon as I lower the threshold, the kick drum triggers the compression. Only the kick drum, not the bass, and the kick drum becomes lower in volume. They kind of even out. So let me bypass this and check out the kick drum, how it actually rises. This stays the same. Again, just being pushed down a tiny bit. And that would actually help you. I can even increase the range, make it touch a little bit more. Look at that. More kick, less kick. I'm gonna add some gain right there to compensate. Nice. So let's hear that in the context of the full song. So that will go to even out the low frequencies of the kick and the bass, because it's catching whatever is louder right here, and that's only the kick drum. So imagine a scenario. You have a song that you have to master. You can't go back to the mix. You can't ask the mixing engineer to fix something, and you have a kick drum that's too loud. This is what you can do. Or you have a bass that's too loud compared to the kick drum. This is what you can do. Now, the attack and release are going to be the settings that you want to adjust to avoid distortion, to avoid any pumping. So you want to adjust those to get yourself a nice dynamic response in doing the correction you want. But usually, when using a multiband compressor on a master, it would just be a couple of things that are done. I would rarely divide the entire spectrum into, let's say, 4 pieces like this, and then master each one separately just to do it. So rarely that's ever the case. Now, what could we do? What else could we do? So let me just delete all of these. I just want one of them just to show you on a single example what can be done. And let's say that right here, I'm going to use this expansion mode, which is basically gating. So we are going to expand on the dynamics by lowering down everything that's quieter than the threshold. So let's try that. So we're going to basically expand on the dynamic range of these high frequencies by attenuating the volume of everything that's quieter than the threshold. So let's try that. So now everything's quieter, yeah. So as soon as something touches it, see, only those punches actually pass through. Everything else is attenuated. Now, this is an extreme version of what we could do. We could lower the ratio and have this be a really subtle effect. But just to show you what can be done, you see, as soon as something goes under the threshold. As soon as something becomes quieter than the threshold, it gets pushed down by, what is that, minus 10 dBs. Let's bypass it. You see a lot of noise, a lot of background noise right there from all the FX and the risers. You see how it cleans it up, how it cleans up the song. And of course, using the attack and release can help you get a different result. Now right here, I'd like a fast attack. So the moment something goes under the threshold, it reacts really fast. And the moment it goes back, the release is also short. It goes back really fast because with the high frequencies, we're dealing with a really fast changing dynamics in the signal usually. Let's bypass this. So imagine this change, but being applied just a tiny bit like this. I can lower this ratio to apply this just a tiny bit. So you see, that is also something you could do. So you could add some punch to everything and add clarity by removing a lot of the background noises in the high frequencies that could come from, I don't know, FX like I have here, or maybe too much reverb. You could maybe clean it up a tiny bit by using something like this. So compression or expansion, whatever it is you want to use, there is a really specific reason why you would. And usually those kinds of cases where something specific needs to be done is when I would use multiband compression on a master track. Now everything else is like on any other compressors, to the attack and release ratio and knee. Just like on any other compressor, it's this range feature that we have right here that makes both of these compress and expand modes have kind of a two different functionalities.